live. And 3, 2, go.
Y'all, I had a question for you this morning. I'm going to try not to laugh at my own jokes, okay?
Those are the best.
Good luck.
Why couldn't the private detective pass gas in bed? He didn't want to blow his cover.
Yes.
I think that joke might linger for a while.
Oh, here we go.
You got it, Tom. That was good.
Careful, to keep that going for days.
Maybe so.
Good morning and welcome to the Daily Huddle. I'm Tara Heaton and I'm here with my co-host Kathryn Sabol for Wednesdays when we talk everything communication and relationships. And I am leading with an extra scoop of love this morning. So I'm going to turn this love out to you all, and I'm going to start with the beautiful Andrea. I must ask you this morning, how are you and where are you?
Tara, I am the way I say I am, and today I'm colorful.
Love it.
And I am right where I need to be, which is right here.
And we're so glad every time you show up, you bring such light. So thank you. And you are colorful. I love that. I haven't asked Stan a question in a while. Good morning, Stan. I need to know a couple things from you. I need to know the time. What time is it? And what are you grateful for?
Wow, I'm grateful. First of all, the time is now, the only time that there is. And I'm grateful for being in the now, for having this time.
Oh, that's really powerful. Thank you so much for that. It's a conscious effort. And so thank you for the reminder. I think we have one last question, and I haven't asked Sorrel in a while. Who will you hug today, my friend?
I'm going to hug 3 people. I'm going to hug my 3 sons. That's one hug because it's going to be a group hug. And my wife.
That's a lot of loving going on. I love to hear that.
You started with it, Tara, so here you go.
I love it. I love it. We have a question today. And the question came from an experience that Kathryn and I have shared. And the question is this: what can we learn from the power of connection? And I'd like to peel that back. So I'm going to throw it over to Kathryn. And if you'll give us a little context about how we came up with this question and what we see to be true.
Yes. Well, that was a bit of a spoiler alert because I think the question is, what can we learn from the power of community?
Oh, crap.
And
sorry.
One of the things, no, it's great because honestly, it's community is connection and all that good stuff. So yeah, Tara and I wanted to share about an experience we had this past weekend. We put on our first ever workshop together. So we brought 6 beautiful, powerful women together in my living room, and we delivered a half-day retreat. And we learned a few things from that we wanted to share. And I say I learned, but probably remembered also. We were reminded of a few things. It was really amazing. It was such an incredible gift to be in the room with women who are open, people who want to give, to learn, to love. And when we walked away from that, Tara and I realized we created the space for a sustainable energy that lasted us days beyond that moment. And I think often in the time of Zoom, we forget the power of being in person and the power of creating an intentional space, an intentional community. And today we wanted to dive into that. And what did we get from that? And how did that happen? And first of all, it started with Tara and I creating the intention and then creating the space to bring these women together and to create a safe space in which they could share and be vulnerable. And then from that, all of this juicy energy was in the room. Tara and I were both really lit up, energized. We're watching these women open up and be vulnerable and say things like, I don't normally share this much. And then just to hear what came from the connection. So Tara, tell us a little bit about your experience of it and what you got from it. And then let's dive into kind of how we got there.
Well, I think something that you said, I do want to dig into a little bit, and of course the biology of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, we thought very carefully about who we wanted to invite and who we think would potentially be, as you say, vulnerable. But we know that there's one thing that invites vulnerability, and that's to lead with vulnerability. So when we share our insecurities, our concerns, and we don't show up with this striving for perfection spirit, it invites that back.
Mm-hmm.
And when people see you being your complete authentic self, that gives them permission and freedom and safety to do the same. So I'd like to talk just a minute about the biology of it, because it's not just, oh, it's just in your mind that you leave there with this new uplifted energy. It is in your mind, and it is in your mind in the form mostly of oxytocin, some vasopressin, some endorphins. There's a whole cocktail full of neurotransmitters, and some are actually hormones that are really, truly sustainable. And the big one I keep referring to is oxytocin, because it can last in the body up to 2 weeks when it's elevated. And that comes from a feeling of feeling bond and trust and love. We are wired. We need this. And so many of us find ourselves working at home in our earrings, blouse, and yoga pants. That's me so many days. And we're depleting ourselves of what we were made to have, and that's connection. And that connection gives us confidence and energy to show up as our best selves in all settings. So not just another retreat, but a really difficult corporate meeting I might have today, or a meeting with Caroline's doctor. I need that energy that we stirred up and synthesized on Saturday to talk to her doctor about what's going to happen next month.
Yeah, I love that. And what keeps coming to me is how did we get there? Because you and I kept coming back to, you and I had to have that with each other too, the connection with each other to make that happen. And I think sometimes we forget that, but we kept coming back to, if you and I are connected, and we spent the previous 2 evenings on the couch with wine and chocolate and all that good stuff and just hanging out and connecting. We got all the details right, the particles, but when you and I had that connection, it immediately created that in the room, and it held the space for it. So we didn't have to work so hard to create what we wanted to create. And so it makes me think about, like you said, other situations, other meetings, other times when I'm with people, that am I really building that connection with them, whether in person or online, or am I just transactional trying to get to the end, the end game? What's the purpose of this meeting? What about this phone call? I was supposed to call them back, therefore I am, versus really being in that connection. And that's what it taught me, is like, how can I bring that connection to every interaction? At the grocery store, when somebody's speaking to me, it's a human speaking. It's not a store clerk. It is a store clerk, but, really to see them as the human that they are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're talking about, and how that gets created in our minds and our bodies, the oxytocin, that's that connection.
Yes. And as I listen to you share this, it makes me think of something that you've continued to say to me as we were working on building this. And it's finally clear to me what you're saying. We would work on it. We would talk about it. We would get together, enjoy each other, connect, exciting things would come. And then sometimes we'd start talking about it in a very linear way. And you would say, this feels hard. And I kept thinking, well, so what? It's work. So let it be hard. And I know what I finally realized what you mean is that when we're making it hard, we're not leaving ourselves open to see what may be. It's like we're just stomping on that curious part of us. Mm-hmm. To remain curious and compassionate, that's what builds deep relationships, that gives us this beautiful, powerful energy to face life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's funny because you would look at me and go, yeah, things get hard. That's okay. I'm fine with it getting hard. And it's like, no, not that kind of hard. I'm okay with work. It's not that. It's when we're out of the ease and the flow and that connection and that joy, And it it can be a difficult conversation, but right. When it's like, we're not connected. That's what that means. We're not connected. We don't have to agree. And to get connected for me, and I do this over and over again, and I've learned it more. I learned it more through the workshop. And even with just being friends with you, it's like, I look at the person across and I go, right. What can I learn today? What do I not know about this person? You know, and curiosity is one of those things that keeps us in the present.
Absolutely. And it's really a powerful reminder to me. But let's talk for just a minute about some of the other people that were there. We were going to send out a little survey, and we still may, but we got some beautiful notes back. And I think that people that came, they didn't know what to expect. They just knew that they trusted us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got one text message. I think I'll pull it up here and read the ending of it. It says, let's see here. It says, Saturday, this is just part of it, but Saturday's retreat felt better than any psychological therapy I have done. Talk soon. And I think that I know why. And it goes back to this point that we're trying to make today is therapy is important and therapy is hard and we need it. And we all can gain from therapy. That's not what this is about. This is about relaxing into our true selves and building connection with like-minded, growth-seeking people. And that gave these folks the energy to face the world, right?
Definitely. And one of the other things that you talk about a lot is that growing edge. We also created space for that to happen as well. Like, and it was a growing edge for both of us, and never having done this together and never having done this particular workshop. And, it makes me think also for people listening, like when we're in conversation or even with somebody we know really well, how can you grow yourself in that moment? Like, because sometimes it's like, I want to just say the thing instead of go to that rote place of like, yeah, how are you? Fine. What's a different way? How can I get to, what am I trying to say? It's like, how can I be even more authentic in this moment with this person, And that's a place that can grow us. There's all kinds of ways that we can utilize all these sort of strategies and skills to build up that oxytocin and serotonin. And it doesn't have to be a half-day retreat.
Oh, right. We tap into it anytime we want to. I think it might be enlightening to take a minute and think about what we're talking about again from a scientific standpoint, because I like proof.
Yeah.
And when we're in that workspace, we have beta waves. That's our like highest thinking cognitive function beta waves. And when we're totally in that space, and there's a place for it, we need that. But there's one place where our brain can go that puts us in our very best potential state, and that's called flow. And that's when gamma brain waves are coursing through our minds. And just like you mentioned, how do we get to those gamma waves? How do we take ourselves into actual, truly scientifically proven flow? And that is when we are challenged. We have a real solid purpose of why we want to go after what we're going after, but we're seeking to grow and learn. And when we show up in ego with all the answers, very protected, we can never get there. And we're not giving our bodies and our minds what it needs to continue to grow and to be our best selves.
It's such a good reminder. It's such a good reminder to, because it's like, it's a recipe, right? It's a recipe for flow. It's a recipe for, and that's what we learned from the power of community, that this community is when two people come together, and it can happen anytime and anywhere. And in that, regardless of if it's somebody that you see every day or haven't seen in a while, there's so many ways to bring ourselves into that space, grow, learn, get curious. What can you learn about this person? What's the question I really want to know the answer to without really knowing it? Like, how are you really? What are you really excited about? And really get curious and learn about that person. And where does it take us? And because you and I talked afterwards about how we really felt that for days, and how we were able to take that into other areas of our lives, because not every conversation, every interaction will be that way. But if we can fill ourselves up in that way, then we can take it with us. We can show up with that energy, and we're more likely to get it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we haven't really I don't want to take us backwards, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least shine a light on the opposite of this connective flow state that we can have with others that we need. And that's when, so let's define perfectly what flow is. It is when we're highly challenged and highly skilled and we have a solid purpose. It's like the light shines down. We want to do this. We know we're capable and it's still challenging. And that can be in communication. It can be in art. It can be in all types of activities. But let's talk about the opposite of that and what happens to our body for a minute. Let's just say we're highly skilled, but the challenge is low. So we're bored. That puts our mind wanting to crave synthetic dopamine. That means I need a snack, I need coffee, I need a drink, I need to shop, I need Netflix. That's where our brain goes, especially today. Okay, so what if we are highly challenged, but we're low skilled? Super stressful, right? That's cortisol flooding our body. That mind is looking for relief. Again, we want instant relief and gratification. Same thing. We're after synthetic forms of dopamine, which is same things, alcohol, caffeine, sugar, all the things that are not really good for helping us to show up as our best selves.
That's awesome. It's such a good reminder, because when you were talking, I was sitting here thinking like, oh gosh, I can challenge myself, at work, if I've got something that really is kind of boring, or I'm, what's a way that I could do it that would challenge me a little bit? Could I go the extra mile? Could I learn a bit more about it? I was writing a brief, if you will, this morning about a scenario. And I was like, ugh. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually, it's funny. I didn't know that I was doing this, but hearing you describe it, I'm like, I'm actually going to do this really well. I'm going to make a super huge case for it, even though it may not be needed in this situation. I can do this. I can actually, and then I got really excited and I started to write it out and start to really do the different scenarios. And I was like, oh, so it's exactly what you're describing. And then I was like, I really like doing this. I want to do more of it. So it's interesting, to hear you talk about that. Yeah. So anyway, I think I'm curious what people are hearing and what they're taking away. But I wanted to leave with just one bottom line, which I've already said, but I want to say it again. And then I want to hear what yours would be. And for me, it's just like what you described is happening in the body biologically. And what I described what's happening actually in the world as I'm creating this thing that was boring. And then I decided to make it more challenging. That there are ways in which we can engage with everyday activities, with our life, with whatever is present, that can take us closer to being in flow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I don't want to dig into this today because I really want this to be a conversation, but maybe next week or soon after we can share that someone who was especially struggling in a time of grief in that room just looked at me and said, how do you do that? And it's practice, but we have some really solid strategies that I think could help us dig into this. But the answer to the question, what, and you made me insecure about it. What can we learn from the power of community? So let's ask that question to the audience, and then we'll bring it back to what we think we've learned if there was just one takeaway. So Chase, tell us.
Oh, this is such a great conversation. I was triggered when Kathryn said, how do we make people feel more comfortable, or how do we bring them into a space of flow? And I always say, I broke this up into 3 letters. I talked about this a long time ago, right? I wrote it down. It's ACL, right? The first part is ask different questions. Like instead of people going, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Hey, what's going on? It'll say something like, hey, how are you? My name is Chase. What's your name? So-and-so, so-and-so. Oh, really? What's your passion? They go, what? What's your passion? Like, what do you like to do? Throws them completely off. They're like, wow. And they'll look at me and be like, I don't know. And it really throws them off. Then the other thing is that you never notice when you're talking to somebody, it happens to me at least 5 times a day because I talk to a lot of people. I say, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And they go, hey, how are you? And I go, how are you? And they go, because we didn't get anywhere. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? We didn't get anywhere. What did we get? Right? So I was just saying, it triggered me to say, just ask different questions. Like literally make up some questions in your head. I have like 5 of them that I ask people and they're like, oh, I've never been asked that before. Like, how's your headspace today? What? Your headspace, like where are you at in your head? And it really messes with them. They really go, oh, I didn't think about that. Because I don't think people believe that you care. That's the problem. You speak to somebody you don't even know. Hey, how are you? They don't think you care, so they shut it down. They give you the same question and they move forward, right? Which is so interesting. So I just wanted to say, ACL, ask different questions, challenge the responses, and listen.
Oh, that's great. Gosh, that's beautiful, Chase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And I think the asking different questions really does, it brings us present, because it's the opposite of that is just, It's like it's the same pattern over and over, but it brings us present.
Yeah.
Really listen to the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? It's awesome. And it looks like we've got a question in the chat too, for you, Tara, from Tom. It says, what if we're highly challenged, highly skilled, but there's no inspiring purpose? Is that low flow?
Highly challenged and highly skilled, and there's no purpose. So the Greeks would say that you're one step away from something called arete, which is the very best version of ourselves. And now there's science to back that up, which means if there's not a high purpose in what we're doing, that something is missing. Can we tap into flow state when we're highly skilled and highly challenged, but there's no point in it? That'd be fascinating research. And if anyone wants to fund it, I would love to take on that project, but I don't know. My guess would be no. Arete, A-R-E-T-E.
Well, Tara, let me maybe take the question and apply it back to last Saturday for you all, the community that you were feeling. I would infer that in the room, everyone was feeling a deep sense of purpose, for their own benefit of feeling community and to take it forward. So is that fair to observe?
Yes. And what Kathryn and I have talked about, and I've learned this through my own business, is they invested something, and it wasn't money. They invested something more precious to them than money. They invested not only their time, but their Saturday morning. So people don't give up their Saturday mornings without a reason. And I think their purpose was the craving of community. So yeah, pretty great stuff there.
I agree. I just wanted to say one thing about that too. I agree. It's a great question, Tom, because I was thinking back to my former business before I sold it, and it had purpose for so long, but that was one of the reasons I had to sell it. At the end, I was still highly challenged and I was highly skilled, but the purpose was gone. I was creating stuff at that point. That's what it felt like. And I couldn't stay. So I would say just sort of experientially, I would say if there's no purpose, I would think it would be hard to get into flow.
Wow, that makes me think back to when I sold my business, and that was the same for me. I was bored.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sick of this. Wow, you're right. Okay, no project needed, but I'll still take the funding.
Leave it to Tom to get us there. That's great. Thanks, Tom.
Sure. Thank you.
What about who else? Sorrel, you got your hand up. I'd like to know what you feel we can learn from the power of community. You're on mute.
I'll share with you what I'm learning from the conversation. And I'm toying with the thought that maybe, given what you're creating and what you experienced last Saturday, that maybe we're all already connected. And that my automatic and thrown way of being is to deny that connection. And then what it is to be connected is to actually do exactly what you're talking about. It's like I'm discovering, oh my God, curiosity, asking questions may be an access to acknowledging and embracing the connection that's already there. Because what I was struggling with was, so what is connection? And I couldn't answer that question. So when I do get curious and I ask questions, when I do listen and I feel something generated, whether it is by dopamine or oxytocin, in the end, if we were to attempt to answer the question, what would you say to the question? What is connection? And when do I know I'm connected to you?
Wow. You weren't supposed to ask us a question. You're supposed to answer the question, Sorrel. You stumped me. No, it's fascinating what you're saying, because all I keep thinking are trees and mushrooms, and like how in nature and the natural world, and how it's all already connected. And so I would tend to agree with you that yes, we are all connected, and that maybe it's more about uncovering the connection, remembering the connection, than finding it or making it happen. And I'm going to step out on a limb here and say, how do we know we are connected, or that I'm connected to you? You choose to see it. You choose to feel it. You choose to be it.
I just want to let that sit for a moment before I open my mouth, because that was beautiful. Thank you. I think choosing it. And I'm just going to let that sit in a minute, but it's reminding me that we have to continue to choose it. And what I mean by that is, if I didn't see Sorrel for 6 months, I would miss him, and we wouldn't be as connected. We have to continue to take care of relationships and grow them. Just like you said, out in nature, if we don't take care of nature, it dies, right? And this is part of our nature, to be connected, but we have to nurture it. We can't just take it for granted. I think we do that with our spouses or our partners more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Tom, you have your hand up. Yes.
Well, thank you. I think your comment just led into my question, but I want to ask it directly. Kathryn, early in this huddle, you used the word sustainable, with energy and connection. And as I hear you describing, it's a choice to connect. How do you think, reflected back on Saturday, the concept of sustainable connection, as you disperse and you get re-immersed in, the other parts of your life, how do you think about, sustaining that emotion and that connection that you developed?
Well, I did it this morning before we got on the huddle. I tapped back into it. I remembered it, because the energy and the feeling and even the connection live in here. I think some of it does live out there. I do believe that there is such a thing as connection, and I am connected. And yet to tap back into it, I remembered like, oh, right. I remember what it was like for Tara and I to get ready for that, and for us to get connected. It's like a plug-in, it feels like it's always there and available. We just have to make the choice to connect to it and feel it. And when we feel it, are we not there again?
So you're choosing again and again, and it's almost like you're trying to form a habit around it to keep it, more continuous. I feel like I'm a student of the huddle. I'm putting all these notes together, but thank you.
It's right. Yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, the more we do it, the more it becomes a habit, the more it's patterned in our brain. And yeah, absolutely. I love where you're looking too, Andrea.
It triggered my brain when we were speaking about this choice of being connected, that if it's a choice, since it is a choice, we should act on it. Meaning, at our age, it's not bad to schedule connections. So go ahead and schedule them, not just have the choice to connect, but go ahead and schedule them. Have lunch, but do it, make it an action. So that's what I wanted to tap into both of you guys. Do you see that this, like Tom was saying, sustainability of connections, is it something that if it's not a habit, should we go ahead and plan for it? Is it something okay? Is it okay to do that? Make it an action?
Tara, I'm gonna let you answer this. I have my own answer, but you want to hear what you have to say.
It absolutely. I think initially too, and over time for me, I've had to tap into this type of energy for years. And so I have become quite honestly more skilled at it. I had 2 very, very difficult phone conversations this morning before the daily huddle. And I had to go back and just put myself back in that room on Saturday, or put myself back in what my aspirations are, why I'm here on this earth, how devoted I am to helping others uncover joy. And it brought me to you all, hopefully, as my best self. And so absolutely. So, and so as far as like making the lunches and like, there's a networking thing tonight. It's not really my love, but I know that it's the best thing for me, my spirit. So yes, I think absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's also what we dug into also in the workshop is what works for you. Like, like how do you, like what works for you? If that works for you, Outlook reminders, whatever it is, like go for that, So yeah, Ronald, such a good conversation.
Yeah, it's really a very interesting conversation. It's probably the second time this conversation can come back in Daily Huddle, because I kind of really keep a mental track. And I remember we talked about this before. It's like I got myself, or through a couple of friends, I became the glue. I became the glue, the connector. So it is a natural muscle. It is a muscle, and I believe it needs to be constantly at work. It needs to be constantly in motion to really create this connection to everyone. And I think we are probably the few of us that have it as natural. We are the chosen one to really build this world. We are the chosen one to really keep everyone connected and bring community around us. And that's basically and in fact, I've had people criticize me. Oh, why are you the one that's keeping in touch with anybody? Why are you the one that's calling people? Why are you the one? No, I mean, it's a natural vibe. So we are designed for like this, and we just have to accept our call.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. The chosen ones. Thank you, Ron. All right. We have time for one more. Well, we don't really, we're over, but that's fine. We're going to hear from Sorrel anyway.
Dan posted this thing in the chat, and it just hit me like a 2x4. When we feel the connection, it's there. And you said, Kathryn, we choose it. So I'm like, wow, even though I could schedule lunch with somebody or coffee, well, what if they're 2,000 miles away? And Stan, thank you, I could still be connected.
Tara was the one who said it first. Yeah, I believe Tara said it first. And Esther Hicks said it in the law of attraction. I mean, if you feel it, that's your compass to let you know that you are in sync with yourself, with your inner self. If you feel that connection, that's your guidance system to let you know that you are there. If you feel it, you are there.
You know who taught me that, Stan? You know who taught me that?
Esther Hicks, am I right?
Who taught it to my son while he was incarcerated? Who taught it to me?
Who taught it to you?
My son.
Oh, he was the one that told you that?
Well, he read Esther Hicks
right
while he was incarcerated. And he taught me to experience this because he could do it from behind bars and steel walls. So if he could have done it in there, we can all do it.
There you go.
So with that, I'll let Kathryn close this out.
Wow.
Oh, what an incredible conversation.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with love. When you feel it, it's there. So feel it today. And laugh out loud. Throw your head back, feel the joy, live into that also. Feel that connection with other people. It will help you to stress less and choose to eat those plants because that'll help your body when you get ready to go to sleep, and care for yourself and restore and rejuvenate. Give of this connection to everyone. Give of yourself and of your love, and move that body. We'll see y'all next time on the Daily Huddle.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.
Everyone.
Thank you, Kathryn. Thank you, Tara.
Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice. Thank you.